GE 10. 2, 3. 1 ch1. 6 at 1 Chronicles 1. 6 The Masoretic Hebrew text has Dapath. However, the Greek Septuagint, the Latin Vulgate, and some 30 Hebrew manuscripts have Rapath. The difference in spelling is perhaps the result of the copyists writing the Hebrew Daleth instead of the Hebrew Rehsh, the letters being very similar in appearance. Rapath is listed among those from whom the various nations and peoples were spread about in the earth following the global flood. GE 10. 32 The only historical reference regarding his descendants is that of Josephus, of the 1st century CE, who claims that the early inhabitants of Paphlagonia along the east side of the Black Sea in northwestern Asia Minor were anciently called Rapians. Some scholars would also connect the name with that of the river called Arabas in that general area, while others favor a relationship with the district of Rebansha in the region of the Bosporus. Farther to the the limited mention of Rapath in the Bible record and the lack of reference to the name in available ancient secular history allows for no certain identification. Ripping of garments. A common sign of grief among the Jews, as well as among other Orientals, particularly upon hearing of the death of a near relative. In many cases such ripping consisted of a rending of the garment in front just sufficient to lay open the breast, thus not necessarily a complete ripping of the garment so as to make it unfit for wearing. The first instance of this practice recorded in the Bible is that of Reuben, Jacob's eldest son, who, upon returning and not finding Joseph in the water pit, ripped his garments apart, saying, "The child is gone. And where am I really to go?" As the firstborn, Reuben was particularly responsible for his younger brother. His father Jacob, when told of the supposed death of his son, likewise ripped his mantles apart and put on sackcloth in mourning. GE 37. 29, 30, 34, and down in Egypt Joseph's half-brothers showed their grief by ripping their garments apart, when Benjamin was made to appear as a thief. GE 44. 13. In contrast, when Aaron's two older sons, Nadab and Abihu, were destroyed by Jehovah for their wicked act, Moses instructed their father Aaron and their two surviving sons. "Do not let your heads go ungroomed, and you must not tear your garments, that you may not die." La 10. 6 On other occasions, however, the lesser priests of the Aaronic line were permitted to display such evidence of grief in the case of the death of Neotextoi acute Miritra Longo. Risa 814 King Joachim and his princes is noted in the fact that when Jeremiah's prophecy, which warned of Jehovah's judgments, had been read to them, they felt no dread and did not rip their garments apart. J 36. 24. However, showing that such outward demonstration might be hypocritical or at least insincere and that it had no value unless the person's grief was genuine, Jehovah spoke to the people of Judah through the prophet Joel and said to them, "Rip apart your hearts, and not your garments, and come back to Jehovah your God." Joe 2. 13. Later, High Priest Caiaphas affected great indignation and outrage by ripping his garments over Jesus' admission that he was the Son of God. Mount 26. 65 By contrast, Paul and Barnabas, as Christian followers of Jesus, showed a sincere dismay and anguish by ripping their outer garments apart when they saw that the people of Lystra were about to worship them as gods. Act 14. 8-18. The law required a leper to wear a torn garment. La 13. 45, perhaps because of the Hebrew association of leprosy with death, reflected in such accounts as Miriam's being referred to as like someone dead after being struck with the dread disease. New 12. 12 So the leprous one was obligated to wear distinguishing garb, in effect mourning for himself as among the living dead. Symbolic use. Clothing was also torn on occasion for symbolic reasons, as when Ahijah the prophet ripped the garment he was wearing into 12 pieces and told Jeroboam to take 10 of them, thereby representing the division of Solomon's kingdom. 1 K 11. 29-39 Similarly Samuel illustrated Jehovah's rejection of Saul's house by his reference to Samuel's sleeveless coat that had been ripped from Saul's grasp. 1 Sa 15. 26-28. Risa possibly, sprinkling. An Israelite wilderness campsite mentioned between Libnah and Kalathka. New 33. 21, 22 Risa's location is not certain, though some have connected it with Contilagarasa, about 55 kilometers 34 mi NW of the northern end of the Gulf of the Kaaba. Rithma Barum tree. one of Israel's encampments in the wilderness. New 33. 18, 19 Its site is now unknown. River. The Hebrew term na refers to a river, that is, a considerable body of water that flows fairly constantly in a natural channel. In contrast, a wadi, or torrent valley heb, Nachel, is often dry but at times carries a turbulent flow of water. Among the main rivers mentioned in the Bible are the Hydrical Tigris, Euphrates, Jordan, Abana, and Pharpar. GE 2. 14. 2 Chi 5. 10, 12 The Nile, though not designated by that name, is referred to as or sometimes Yo, which is understood to mean also a stream or canal. Issa 33. 21 Or a water-filled shaft or gallery. Job 28. 10 The context makes it apparent when the terms Yo or Yo designate the Nile. Therefore, the name Nile appears in Bible translations. GE 41. 17, 18. The River of Egypt. GE 15. 18 may be the same as the Torrent Valley of Egypt. New 34. 5. Seashore. The Euphrates is often simply called the river. Jos 24. 2, 3. Ezrate. 36. Issa 7. 20. 27. 12. Mix 7. 12 Being the longest and most important river of Asia, the Euphrates was the great river to the Hebrews. GE 15. 18 Therefore, its being referred to as the river resulted in no ambiguity. King David, with the help of Jehovah, was able to extend the boundaries of the promised land as far as the Euphrates. 1 Ch 18. 3-8 Concerning his son Solomon, it was stated, he will have subjects from sea to sea, and from the river Euphrates to the ends of the earth. PS 72. 8 In Zechariah's prophecy these words are repeated and point forward to the earth-wide rulership of the Messiah. Zech 9. 9, 10. Compared R2. 44. Mount 21. 4, 5. The first river mentioned in the Bible is the one that apparently had its source in Eden and watered the garden that Jehovah provided as a home for Adam and Eve. This river broke up into 4 headwaters, O Textoi Acute Muritra Longo, Rock 815 Mighty river of protection to that city. Enemies that might come against Jerusalem like a hostile Ghani fleet would experience disaster. Issa 33. 21, 22. Sea Gully. The disastrous flooding of the river is used to represent the invasion of enemy forces. Issa 8. 7. Water is necessary for life, and Jehovah is referred to as the source of living water. Ch 2. 13 But apostate Israelites turned their attention to Egypt and to Assyria. That is why Jehovah, through his prophet Jeremiah, said, What concern should you have for the way of Egypt in order to drink the waters of Sheol? And what concern should you have for the way of Assyria in order to drink the waters of the river? Know, then, and see that your leaving Jehovah your God is something bad and bitter. Ch 2. 18, 19 Evidently the waters from human sources that are looked to as being vital to one's existence are also referred to at Revelation 8. 10 and 16. 4. Regarding the river of water of life 322. 1. Sea life river of water of life. River of Egypt. Jehovah promised that Abraham's seed would be given the land from the river of Egypt to the Euphrates River. GE 15. 18 Commentators generally understand the river of Egypt to refer to the torrent valley of Egypt now identified with Wadi al-Arish of the Sinai Peninsula, which empties into the Mediterranean Sea about 150 kilometers 90 mi of Port Said. See Egypt, torrent valley of. At 1 Chronicles 13. 5 Certain translations read Rivashi middle. Shore of Egypt NW, La, at, and this reference also may be to Wadi al-Arish. However, another possibility is that both texts refer to a branch of the Nile. Seashore. Rizia middle. Z from a root meaning take pleasure. Approve. A warrior and family head in the tribe of Asher. Son of Allah. 1 Ch 7. 39, 40. Rizpah is heated stone. Or, glowing coal. A concubine of King Saul. Daughter of Ea. 2 3. 7. 21. 11. After Saul's death, his son Ishbosheth alienated General Abner by calling him to account for having relations with Rizpah, an act he construed as intimating seizure of the throne. As a consequence, Abner defected to David. 2 3. 7-21. Rizpah had given birth to 2 sons by Saul, Armini and Mephibosheth. Long after Saul's death, David took these 2 sons of Rizpah along with 5 other descendants of Saul and handed them over to the Gibeonites, to be slain, in order to remove blood guilt from the land. The 7 were exposed on a mountain, where Rizpah guarded their bodies from the birds and wild beasts from the start of harvest until water poured down upon them from the heavens. 2 21. 1-10. This indefinite period of time may have been 5 or 6 months, unless, as some suggest, there was an exceptional, out-of-season downpour. Such a heavy rain before October would have been most unusual. 1 12. 17, 18. PR 26. 1. David finally heard of the matter and relieved Rizpah of her vigil by having the bodies buried. 2 21. 11-14. Road. See highway, road. Robe. See address. Rock. The scriptures as written in Hebrew distinguish between a rock or a large piece of rock sur and a craigsla. Both terms are used literally and figuratively in the scriptures. The two are found in parallel at 2 Samuel 22. 2, 3 and Psalm 18. 2. Jehovah is my crag. My God is my rock. The Bible preserves the names of certain crags and rocks. For example, the Midianite prince Oreb was killed by Gideon's men at a rock called Oreb, evidently so named because of this incident. JG 7. 25. Issa 10. 26. Mention is made of the crag of Etam, where Samson lived for a time. JG 15. 8. And the tooth-like crags of Bozez and Sneh, where Jonathan and his armor-bearer attacked an outpost of the Philistines. 1 14. 4, 5. It was at Meribah, in the vicinity of Kadesh. There was another Meribah near Rephidim in the Mount Venus region of Horeb. 17. 7. That Moses and Aaron were aggravated to the point of failing to sanctify o textoi acute miritra longo. Rock Badger 816 of Old and New Testament Words 1981, Volume 4, p. 76. Remarks. Petros denotes a piece of a rock, a detached stone or boulder, in contrast to Petra, a mass of rock. Word Studies in the New Testament says about Petros. In classical Greek the word means a piece of rock, as in Homer, of Ajax throwing a stone at Hector. Or of Patroclus grasping and hiding in his hand a jagged stone. By M. Vincent, 1957, Volume I, p. 91. The Greek word tramiddle.kis, which means roughly 3. 5, refers to jagged, uneven reefy rocks at Acts 27. 29. Another Greek word, spimiddle.las, evidently has reference to a rock or reef that is hidden beneath the water. It is used by Jude to illustrate certain men who had slipped into the Christian congregation with corrupt motives. As hidden rocks were a menace to ships, so these men constituted a real danger to others in the congregation. He says of such men, "These are the rocks hidden below water in your love feast while they feast with you." Jude 12. For a discussion of Matthew 16. 18, see Rockmass. Rock Badger Heb. Sharmiddle.fan. The Hebrew word is also rendered here XJB, FTN and Kearney. KJ. The rock badger somewhat resembles a large rabbit but has short, rounded ears, short legs, and virtually no tail. Its feet are furnished with elastic underpads. The rock badger dwells in rocky areas, where it finds holes and crevices to which it can quickly retire at the least sign of danger. Although very shy by nature, this creature can inflict savage bites with its incisors when cornered in a hole. The animal is a vegetarian. The variety referred to in the Bible is evidently that known as Procavia syriaca. Some have taken issue with its classification in Scripture as a creature that chews the cud but does not split the hoof. Lure 11. 5. The 14. 7. However, zoologist Hubert Hendricks, in observing rock badgers at the Hellerbrunn Zoological Gardens near Munich, Germany, noticed that these creatures made peculiar chewing and swallowing movements. He found that rock badgers actually do chew the cud from 25 to 50 minutes a day, usually during the night. The German newspaper Stuttgarter Zeitung of March 12, 1966, commented on the discovery. Although this fact was previously unknown to accepted zoology, it is not new. In the 11th chapter of Leviticus, you can find it. The claim has also been made that the hoof toes of the rock badger are doubly cloven. However, it could hardly be said that the rock badger's front feet, each having 4 toes terminating in hoof-like endings, and the hind feet, each equipped with 3 toes and a corresponding number of miniature hoofs or nails, resembled the foot member of a splitter of the hoof such as a cow. The scriptures speak of the instinctive wisdom of this little creature. Although not mighty, the rock badger makes up for its seeming defenselessness by dwelling in inaccessible rocky places. PS 104. 18. PR 30. 26. Rock mass. This translates the Greek word petra feminine gender, which designates a mass of rock Mount 7. 24, 25. 27. 51, 60. Lu 6. 48. 8. 6, 13. Re 6. 15, 16 and therefore differs from Pietro's masculine gender and employed as a proper name, Peter, meaning piece of rock. This distinction makes it clear that, when saying to Peter, "You are Peter, and on this rock mass I will build my congregation," Jesus was not using synonymous terms. Mount 16. 18. Even in the Aramaic Syriac version the distinction is apparent from a difference in the gender of the particle preceding the word Kaifa, used for both Peter and rock. The masculine verbal pronoun who precedes Peter, but rock is preceded by the feminine demonstrative adjective heid. That the apostles did not understand Jesus' statement to signify that Peter was the rock mass is evident from the fact that they later disputed about who seemed to be the greatest among them. Mr. 9. 33-35. Lu 22. 24-26. There would have been no text to acute muritra longo. Rod, staff 817 at one time believed that Peter was the rock mass but later changed his view. Lang's Commentary on the Holy Scriptures Mount 16. 18, FTN, p. 296 quotes Augustine as saying, "The rock is not so named from Peter, but Peter from the rock non anima Petra, said Petrus a Petra, even as Christ is not so called after the Christian, but the Christian after Christ." For the reason why the Lord says, "On this rock I will build my church," is that Peter had said, "Thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God. On this rock, which thou hast confessed," says he, "I will build my church." For Christ was the rock Petra enumerat Christus, upon which also Peter himself was built. For other foundation can no man lay, than that is laid, which is Jesus Christ. Translated and edited by P. Schaff, 1976. Rod, staff. The Hebrew words shivet and matmiddle are frequently translated rod and staff. Shivet has the meaning of a staff, stick, or rod for support and is also rendered crook as a shepherd's crook or staff. La 27. 32 Possibly because tribal chieftains carried a staff, or scepter, shivet and matmiddle. Both also designated a tribe and are so translated. X 31. 2. The 18. 1. 29. 18. The shaft of a spear or like weapon was designated by the Hebrew words shivet or etz literally, tree. 2 Sa 18. 14. 21. 19. Another term, macmiddle.kel, is rendered staff and stave G 30. 37. 1 Sa 17. 43, and mishmiddle.eneth is translated staff or support. JG 6. 21. 2 Chi 18. 21. The Greek word for rod is ribdos, sometimes translated staff. Re 19. 15. Mount 10. 10 Another word, zilom, is rendered staff in some translations. It literally means wood or something made of wood. This word is translated clubs at Matthew 26, 47, 55 and in parallel passages. Uses. Rods or staffs were used for support x 12. 11. Zakat. 4. Heb 11. 21. For defense or protection 2 Sa 23. 21. Mount 10. 10. To punish children, slaves, or others x 21. 20 Stick, NW. PR 10. 13. 23. 13, 14. Act 16. 22. In threshing is 28. 27 Both Mat Middle and Shivet appear in this verse, translated rod and staff, respectively, NW. Compare JG 6. 11. Ru 2. 17. And for reaping olives the 24. 20. Isla 24. 13. Also, shepherds use the crook in leading the flock, to manage and help them. As to selecting animals to be given to the sanctuary as a tithe, the law said, as for every 10th part of the herd and flock, everything that passes under the crook whatever falls under the shepherd's care, the 10th head should become something holy to Jehovah. He should not examine whether it is good or bad, neither should he exchange it. Law 27. 32, 33 It is said that the shepherd stood at the gate of the sheepfold as the sheep were coming out with a piece of cloth soaked in dye fastened to the end of his staff. This he touched to every 10th sheep and set aside the ones thus marked as the tithe. Compare Jah 33. 13. As a symbol of authority. One staff was considered a valuable personal possession, and some staffs were doubtless identifiable as belonging to the individual. Judah gave Tamar his staff and his signet ring as security until he should send her a kid of the goats in payment for his relations with her. GE 38. 18. 25 Chieftains carried a rod as a symbol of authority. Therefore the Bible often uses the rod to symbolize the authority one has or the authority vested in him by another. Moses' rod became a symbol of his authority and commission from God when he appeared before the older men of Israel, also when he appeared before Pharaoh and the magic-practicing priests of Egypt. X 4. 17, 29-31. 7. 9-12 In the latter case the rod is said to be Aaron's, but it was evidently Moses' rod used by Aaron as Moses' spokesman, as a comparison of Exodus 7. 15, 17 indicates. After this, Moses' rod was used many times as a symbol that he was appointed and backed up by Jehovah with authority as the nation's O-textoi acute miritra longo rod, staff 818 flock with his staff, but with an iron rod. Re 2. 27. 12. 5. 19. 15. The oppressive rod, or staff of rule or authority, that the enemies of Israel wielded over her is referred to at Isaiah 9. 4. 14. 5. God used the nations around Israel, such as Assyria, to execute punishment on Israel for her sins, and in this action those nations were as a rod of punishment, or chastisement, under God's authority or allowance. Yet these nations acted, not out of love for Jehovah or hate for the sins of Israel, but out of animosity toward both God and Israel, and they went beyond their commission and enjoyed heaping additional afflictions upon Israel. Besides that, these powers, especially Assyria and Babylon, lifted themselves up in haughtiness against Jehovah God himself. God said of Assyria by means